One night I was having trouble sleeping, so I started scrolling Instagram Reels as I do, and I came across something very strange.
Chinese about cleaning spray, and then look at how dirty it is, like full of cacas. Like what a stinky situation.
Oh wait, not that.
They silence the explorers, but it is real. Come, my child, return to Agartha. She said.
I know what you're thinking. What in the bumbaclot did I just watch? My friends, what you just witnessed was a glimpse into the world of Agartha, a mystical land located beneath the Earth's surface, populated by Nazis, aliens, mythical creatures, and an evil black scientist named Yakub. You guys may have seen some variation of these memes on Instagram or TikTok and laughed, but then wondered to yourself, what does it all mean? Well, I was curious too, and I went down an insane rabbit hole. Let me tell you, the lore goes deep. I'm talking center of the earth deep. Actually, I regret ever looking into this because I'm pretty sure I did irreparable damage to my brain, but it's just the price you gotta pay for peak. It's a weird mix of occultism, science fiction, schizo conspiracy theories, and straight up Nazi propaganda. Okay guys, we have a lot to unpack, so buckle in because we're in for a weird ride. Now, before we get into the origins of Agartha, I wanted to talk about my origins. I don't really know much about my family since my dad left when I was 5 and my mom doesn't speak English. Not sure what language she speaks, honestly. Still trying to figure that one out. That's why I partnered with MyHeritage. I highly recommend MyHeritage. Check out the link in the description of this video or scan the QR code on the screen for a 14-day free trial. Thank you, MyHeritage, for sponsoring this video. Now, let's get back into the origins of Agartha. Our story begins in the 1800s with a guy named John Cleve Sims, who came up with a theory that the Earth was hollow, and you could reach the inside of it through two large openings at the North and South poles. What was his evidence, you might ask? Just vibes, really. Serious academics of the time thought Sims was a dumb schmuck and decried his theory as pseudoscientific nonsense. But here's the thing, they couldn't technically disprove him because no one had really explored the poles. So Sims traveled around the country evangelizing his theory and actually convinced a lot of people. In fact, John Quincy Adams, the president, even approved an expedition to the South Pole to potentially find this pole hole. But by far, Sims' greatest accomplishment was inspiring the 1864 classic Journey to the Center of the Earth, which was about a journey to the center of the Earth. In it, the protagonist enters the inner Earth through a volcanic tunnel and discovers a prehistoric world with dinosaurs and shit. This book kind of kicked off an entire genre of inner Earth literature, which would directly lead to whatever this is. I bet if you showed this video to Jules Verne, he would be like, what the hell is this strange device with moving pictures on it? And then he would go home and kill himself, and you would regret showing it to him. Funnily enough, modern day Agartha truthers will actually point to this novel as evidence of its existence. We'll get into that later because Journey to the Center of the Earth is only the tip of the iceberg. Just a few years after its publication in 1871, another book came out called Vril, which was about a race of superhumans who fled to the Earth's core from Atlantis after the city was destroyed. They created an advanced society down below thanks to Vril, a magical elixir that gave them superpowers. This book was extremely influential and became popular with Nazis. In fact, it still is to this day, but again, we will get to that later. Sorry to keep edging you guys with foreshadowing, but we got a lot to cover. Now, you guys may have noticed that the name Agartha has not been used at all so far. The first written mention comes from the 1886 book Mission to India, or in French, Mission l'Inde, written by this smelly French asshole, Joseph Alexander St. Ives. From this point on, the lines between fiction, politics, and the occult and mental illness start to get blurred considerably. You see, St. Ives was an occultist and kind of a schizo. In his book, he claims to have telepathically communicated with people beneath the earth. By the way, this is completely unrelated, but opium was really popular around the time this book was written. According to St. Ives, he used astral projection to travel to Agartha, a massive kingdom hidden somewhere under the Himalayas. Its inhabitants moved underground around 3200 BC after the collapse of the so-called Universal Empire. Not only did they have magical powers, but they also had access to all of the technology of the modern surface world. But the most interesting part was their system of government called the Synarchy, which is basically a technocracy where only the smartest, most enlightened, based people get to hold power. St. Ives said this was the perfect government, which disappeared from the surface after the fall of the Universal Empire. So now it was up to him, Moses, and Jesus Christ, I'm serious, to bring the Synarchy back to the surface world. Then and only then will Agartha be revealed to us again. St. Ives was dead serious about this too. He wrote letters to Queen Victoria, Emperor Alexander of Russia, and the Pope, asking them to adopt the Synarchy. Did I mention opium was really popular around this time? So this book, much like the Agartha memes of today, was partly a byproduct of mental illness and partly a political propaganda tool disguised as esoteric knowledge. The weird thing is that not too long after this book was published in 1886, St. Ives pulled it out of publication and destroyed almost every existing copy. Not sure why he did this, probably had something to do with opium, but it only made the book more mysterious and influential, and it overshadowed everything else he did in his life. The book was rediscovered in 1910, and it would go on to be very popular with a certain group of people that would go on to alter world history forever. Now, unfortunately, this is where things started to go from wacky to dark, because the Agartha lore would be co-opted by a group of people called the Nazis. Maybe you've heard of them. Post-World War I, Germany saw a massive rise in both nationalism and occultism. This led to the creation of a movement called Esoteric Volkisch, which combined these two things. So a bunch of these secretive esoteric groups started springing up across the country, the most influential of which was the Thule Society. What started out as a simple occult study group evolved into a larger movement that would go on to heavily influence Nazi ideology. It was the Thule Society that popularized the idea of a superior Aryan race with mystical origins. Drawing inspiration from occultists like St. Ives, the Thule Society created their own elaborate lore to explain why people with blonde hair and blue eyes were just better than everyone else. According to them, the Aryans are descended from an ancient race of godlike beings originating from some far-off mythical land. These Ubermenches eventually reached Eurasia and mixed with the other inferior races. The only way for the German people to ascend to godhood again was to purge any non-Aryan DNA from themselves through eugenics. Now, the Thule Society would decline and eventually dissolve by 1925, but their influence on Nazism is undeniable. In fact, the swastika and SS logo were taken directly from the Thule Society society's occult symbolism. Also, a lot of its members would go on to be prominent members of the Nazi Party, including Rudolf Hess, Deputy Führer of the Third Reich. In fact, they were pretty much responsible for creating the Nazi Party in the first place. In 1920, members of the Thule Society created the German Workers' Party, which would eventually become the Nazi Party. Now, Hitler himself thought the Thulists were a bunch of schmucks and would try to distance himself from them. He even arrested the former leader of the group, but their influence on Nazism is undeniable. Hitler's right-hand man, Heinrich Himmler, while not being a member himself, was a big fan of the Thule Society's teachings and occultism in general. So much so that he sent a team of archaeologists to the Himalayas to find the origins of the Aryan race. You see, Himmler believed that the Aryans originated in Atlantis, and after it was destroyed, they fled to the Himalayas in search of refuge before making their way to Northern Europe, which, if you remember, was basically the plot of that Vril book. Believe it or not, this shit gets even weirder. In 1935, a German rocket scientist named Willy Ley defected to the United States, and he claimed that a lot of Nazi higher-ups believed in the Hollow Earth theory, and some of them were actively seeking out Vril, the magical substance from the book that is said to give people magical powers. Then in the 60s, two French journalists took Ley's word and ran with it. They published a book called The Magicians, all about Nazi occultism. In it, they claimed that there existed a cult called the Vril Society. This group was obsessed with getting its hands on magical artifacts and tapping into ancient lost knowledge. Oh, and also, Hitler had been attempting to contact a subterranean race of superhumans so he could get access to the Vril Force, which he believed would allow the Germans to mutate into demigods and take over the world. And their source was, they made it up. Honestly, most of the stuff you hear about the Third Reich's obsession with the occult is exaggerated. Like, Hitler himself thought it was kinda cringe and gay. Despite that, after World War II, a strange new ideology began to emerge called esoteric Hitlerism. Holy crap. Did you just say esoteric Hitlerism? Yes, Peter. This was basically a cult that believed Hitler was the Messiah trying to save the world from an evil, malevolent god. It's a weird combination of Nazism, Gnosticism, and a bunch of random mythologies. One of the leaders of this group of schizo-Hitlerists was Miguel Serrano. Yeah, so this trend of Latino Hitler lovers is not new at all. Serrano wrote all of his ideas in a book called Adolf Hitler, The Last Avatar, which is also supposedly the working title of the fourth James Cameron movie. Alright, time for another lore dump. Our story begins in the mythical land of Hyperborea, the birthplace of the Aryan race. Now, Hyperborea is very important because it appears in a lot of the Agartha edits. Whenever you see this snowy land with mammoths and pyramids and shit, that's Hyperborea. In the memes, the names are basically used interchangeably, but they're actually two distinct places. Hyperborea originates from Greek mythology. It was this utopian land in the far north, kind of like Atlantis, but with snow. The Thule Society popularized the idea that Hyperborea was possibly the original home of the Aryans. Serrano took this a step further and said Hyperborea existed outside of space and time in another dimension. It was basically heaven, the home realm of a race of godlike beings. One day, an evil Hyperborean called the Demiurge created our world, which is bad and evil. And if that wasn't bad enough, he also went ahead and created humans. Well, specifically non-white humans. The other Hyperboreans were so disgusted by the Demiurge's sick, twisted creation that they took on physical bodies in the form of blonde-haired, blue-eyed gigachads. The Hyperboreans brought education, technology, and civilization to these beasts and created a golden age, which lasted thousands of years. That is until some of the Hyperboreans got horny and fucked everything up. They mixed with the disgusting brown humans and created Italians and Greeks and shit. Gross. The unnatural union between men and gods caused the Earth to get hit with a comet, which created the Great Flood from the Bible. Some of the Hyperboreans decided to flee inside the Earth, where they formed their new kingdom of Agartha, a highly advanced society that had a bunch of crazy technology like magnets and flying saucers. According to Serrano, the only way for humanity to transcend and enter another golden age was for the Hyperboreans' descendants, the Aryans, to repurify their blood. This is where Adolf comes in. In the esoteric Hitlerist lore, he is an avatar of the Hindu god Vishnu and was chosen by the Agarthans to save the world from the evil demiurge and his followers, the Jews. Agartha telepathically gave Hitler guidance for his mission and even gave him plans for nuclear weapons. But the demiurge was too powerful, and as we all know, Hitler was defeated in 1945. The bombs that were later dropped on Japan were actually built by Hitler with his Agarthan Vril technology and stolen by the Americans. Now, outside of neo-Nazi circles, these ideas were dismissed as schizo fanfiction, but some of these ideas slowly started bleeding into mainstream conspiratorial circles. That's where this guy comes in. Before Candace Owens, before Alex Jones, there was David Icke. This man right here is the godfather of conspiracy theories. Now, David Icke is famous for the idea that the world is being secretly controlled by a group of shape-shifting lizard people from the planet Nibiru, and also for claiming that he was Jesus Christ on television.
You claim to be the Son of God.
So it shouldn't surprise you that the man has a lot to say about Agartha. I'm gonna read you an excerpt from his book, The Biggest Secret, and this is gonna kind of bring everything full circle.
I have no doubt from the evidence I've seen that the Earth is hollow. There are vast regions inside where highly developed civilizations live. I also feel that there are ancient societies living under the ground. The writer Jules Verne was a high initiate of the secret society network. Therefore, he knew far more than the public are allowed to know. His science fiction stories were based on fact. The Nazis also believed that the Earth was hollow, and they established an underground base in Antarctica towards the end of the war, which is still in operation today.
Another thing that he expanded on in his book was the Nazis' use of Vril force to create flying saucers, which you'll often see in these Agartha edits. This is when Agartha really started to go mainstream because the internet was becoming popular, and over time other schizos added to the lore. Like, for example, the idea that the pyramids in Egypt were built using Agarthan tech, and you can access the inner earth through the Pyramid of Giza. Now, under normal circumstances, I would say this is a bunch of stupid dog shit, and anyone who takes it seriously should be subjected to waterboarding and electroshock therapy at the same time. But I don't know, man. Starting to believe. I don't know. Maybe it's the combination of rhino pills, Zins, nitrous oxide, and Monster, but my brain has truly transcended to a higher plane of reality. And you know what? I like it here. I'm also having a lot of hallucinations and homosexual thoughts. It's kind of scary, but exhilarating at the same time. Now, you guys might think this is a bunch of baloney. There are a lot of people out there who take it very seriously. Multiple cults over the years have appropriated Agarthan lore. In fact, two of the main characters in the Agartha edits are actually taken from cults. Let's talk about the first character, this Aryan high elf looking mother sucker. I always thought this guy came from Nazi Skyrim fanfiction, but it turns out the lore is much deeper than that. His name is Ashtar Sharan, and he's the central figure in a Czechoslovak cult called Universe People. In their belief system, Ashtar is the leader of the Great Cosmic Squadron, a benevolent, all-powerful alien race. These aliens are supposed to be perfect in every way, so naturally they have blonde hair and blue eyes. Very subtle. Anyways, Ashtar, along with Jesus and Krishna, are currently fighting in a cosmic spiritual war with an evil alien race known as the Saurians, or lizard people, who are secretly controlling the Earth through governments, media, and technology. Clearly, this was inspired by David Icke, but the main goal of the Great Cosmic Squadron is to expose the lizard people and help humanity achieve enlightenment so that they can join the rest of the ascended races. The founder of Universe People, Ito Benda, is basically like a prophet to them, and he's written multiple books about the cosmic struggle. The famous drawing of Ashtar comes from one of these books. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into the theology of UP. Let's move on to another one of the main characters in the Agartha verse. I'm talking, of course, about Yakub. He's been an integral part of these memes from the very beginning. In fact, the first Agartha meme was this gif of Nazi Logan Paul, the white pharaoh guy, and Yakub himself, who kind of looks like KSI. So who is Yakub? Well, he's an evil black scientist who created white people. He also looks exactly like KSI. I've made an entire video about this guy if you guys are interested, but here's a short rundown. 6,000 years ago, the city of Mecca was a thriving utopian metropolis. It was the center of human civilization before white people came and ruined it. After attempting to stage a revolt, Yaqub was exiled from Mecca along with 9,999 of his followers. He fled to Greece, where he conducted a series of eugenics experiments that resulted in the creation of the white man. Yaqub taught his evil creation the art of tricknology, which Yaqubians used to terrorize the rest of the world. The prophet Moses tried to civilize the Yaqubians, but they were just too wild, so he blew a bunch of them up with dynamite. Unfortunately, the white races survived, and here we are today. But what the heck does this have to do with Agartha? I'm glad you asked! The story of Yaqub was brought to us by Elijah Muhammad, the leader of the Nation of Islam. Years later, another religious leader named Malachi Z. York would expand on the Yaqubian lore and tied it to Agartha. In fact, he wrote a whole book about Agartha. York's version of Agartha is pretty much a complete inversion of the Nazi one, where the latter claimed that the Aryans came from Agartha and corrupted their bloodline by mingling with subhuman trash. York proposed it was the opposite. The black man was the original master race who lived in Agartha and got corrupted and twisted into the degenerate white race we see today. I'm gonna give you guys another lore dump, and you'll see that it's very similar to the esoteric Hitlerist story, except race swapped. According to York, the black man is descended from a race of angelic beings from the planet Risk, called the Anunnaki. After their home planet was destroyed, the Anunnaki came to our planet and settled inside of the hollow earth, forming the kingdom of Agartha. Their descendants, known as the Shiuk, had their own version of the Vril Force, which gave them superpowers like telepathy. Bro, imagine if the Nazis back in the 30s actually did find the entrance to Agartha, and it was just full of black people. Eventually, due to an underground civil war, some of the Agarthans were forced to the surface, where they founded the city of Mecca. Yaqub was born from these surface-dwelling exiles. Also, not that it matters, but York was found guilty on 10 counts of child molestation. Anyways, in the Agartha memes of today, Yaqub is often depicted as like an ambassador for Agartha. According to the lore, Yaqub and the other gatekeepers will only allow true Aryans to enter the splendor of Agartha. Now guys, this really bummed me out because according to my MyHeritage results, I have 0% Aryan DNA in me. But luckily for us non-Aryans, there is another way. So in these memes, White Monster is basically Vril, a magical elixir that would transform anyone into the perfect Aryan if consumed enough. It gives us non-Aryan subhuman trash hope that we can enter Agartha. Or sometimes instead of monster, you'll see raw milk being sipped on. If you're somehow unfamiliar with the lore of raw milk, basically a bunch of brain-dead retards have convinced themselves that raw milk is super healthy, even though it has more bacteria swimming in it than a Hyderabad toilet bowl, and the supposed health benefits are negligible. Anyways, turns out that this whole Agartha thing is just Nazi propaganda. Vril, Hyperborea, Agartha, these have been fixtures in right-wing internet circles for a while now. Just like everything else that's popular today, it originally sprung up on 4chan a decade ago. Recently though, the new wave of Gen Z chuds have rediscovered the old wisdom and created these edits as a way to push their worldview while cloaking it in satire. But the Agartha edits have evolved past their original intended audience and now have become just straight up post-ironic brain rot. Every day I see thousands of AI-generated Agartha slop edits combined with other memes and current events. Honestly, this stuff moves so fast I can't even keep up with it anymore. There's like George Floyd and Charlie Kirk and Epstein's in it now. I don't know, man. Also, I need to say this, I'm gay. I have to mention that because I recently got a large cash injection from Peter Thiel, and one of the stipulations is that I have to say that at least once per video. Now, I know a lot of you guys will probably look down on me for this, but the child support payments and sports gambling debts have gotten out of hand, so I was kind of desperate. So I was originally gonna end this video with the whole spiel talking about how the normalization of white supremacy is bad, but Papa Thiel made me cut that part out. He also left me a comment that just said, "Wrong, you will be punished for this." Anyways, please subscribe. Also, guys, just a quick reminder to go check out MyHeritage and take advantage of the 14-day free trial they're running right now.